You can tell by the tone of the engine something is not right. At this point, this pilot has lost control, and he may not even know it. His directional indicator would tell him that his aircraft is turning off course. His altimeter and vertical speed indicator would tell him that he is losing altitude. His airspeed indicator and the drone of the engine tell him that he is gaining speed without applying power. But rather than concentrating on his instruments, he is feverishly trying to find the ground, and he's looking in the wrong direction. Now he knows something is wrong, but now may be too late. At the top of your screen, you see the ground and the runway. It does not take a genius to know that the ground should be below you. Now let's watch an actual Angel Flight pilot flying an instrument approach. Above and below the clouds, it's easy to tell which way is up. But as you descend to the airport, you must fly down through those clouds, and often you must remain in them while maneuvering simply because they are sharing the airspace required for your approach. As you can see, in the clouds there are no landmarks. There is no horizon. It's not like you can follow the center line or the shoulder of the road. You can't even pull over and wait for the fog to clear. At this point, the pilot had better be as comfortable flying without looking through the windshield as he is when he is above or below the clouds. This is why Angel Flight pilots are required not only to be instrument trained and certified, but also to be current. Current means they have flown a specified number of instrument approaches within a given amount of time, as well as other instrument procedures. Therefore, a pilot who is current is a pilot who is in practice. He is comfortable flying in these weather conditions. Rather than relying on his senses, which can be fooled, this pilot is relying on his instruments. Many of the dials you see here are driven by redundant systems, so if one registers improperly, there are several others which will alert the pilot. In addition, instruments do not lose their equilibrium. They're not confused by cloud layers, which can appear as false horizons. In short, instruments see far better than a pilot can with his eyes. If you listen closely, you will soon hear the distinctive tones of the marker beacons and the pilot lowering the aircraft landing gear. Now this is what an approach is supposed to look like. Good to see the ground below us. Notice the runway straight ahead. You may also be able to see the precision approach path indicator lights on the left of the runway. 2 white, 2 red. That means the pilot is right on the glide slope, perfectly positioned to make this safe landing. And now you see why Angel Flight demands such high standards of its pilots. Landings, even in weather like this, ought to be routine and completely safe. We have now seen how Angel Flight came about, how pilots select the patients they help, the preparation and practice that goes into making a qualified pilot. But we have not looked behind the scenes at what keeps the aircraft qualified and flight-worthy to provide this life-saving transportation. So now we are going to take a walk down the tarmac to that maintenance hangar you see out in front of us, and we'll watch what happens to an aircraft every year. This is called an annual inspection. Federal law requires that at regular intervals, not exceeding 12 months, aircraft must be thoroughly inspected to make sure they are safe for flight. If you have never seen an aircraft dismantled for one of these inspections, it's quite an eye-opening experience. I'll show you a series of photos, and you'll see what you expect the aircraft to look like. Then you'll see what it looks like when dismantled for the inspection. We are now sitting in the second row of seats looking toward the back. After removing the pillows and folding down the 2 rear seats, you have a view of the rear baggage compartment. This is where most passengers think the plane ends, but a lot goes on behind that bulkhead. Here we have flight control cables, antenna wiring, the emergency locating transmitter, avionics components, and electrical power converters. Now let's spin around and look toward the front of the plane. We'll again take out the seats, then the carpet and floor. Now let's back up and see what we've done. Wow! It almost doesn't look like the inside of a plane, does it? Here, certified mechanics inspect the rudder pedals, control cables and linkages, fuel lines from the wing tanks, heater ducts, fresh air vents, the air conditioning evaporator, fan and receiver dryer, autopilot servos and motors, and the pilot and co-pilot seat mounts and various electrical wires. As we move further back, we can see additional electronics, cables, and antenna fittings, as well as the flap motor and cables, and the landing gear motor with its linkages and uplock cables. Just behind this, we have the middle seat mounts and the aileron autopilot motors and servos. We also have a good view of the red manual landing gear hand crank. Once cable tensions are checked, as well as all other interior required inspections, it is time to check the exterior of the aircraft, including the all-important landing gear, engine, and propeller. Finally, it's time to put it all back together. Annual inspections can take anywhere from several days to a couple of weeks, and can cost anywhere from $1,500 upwards to several $1,000s. Now, when you couple that with the expense of a hangar at over $3,000 a year, burning 12 to 15 gallons of fuel per hour at $4 a gallon on a good day, aircraft insurance, normal repairs, not to mention the cost of the plane at around $250,000, you begin to see the investment of time and money required to fly Angel flights. But believe it or not, there is still more. In addition to annual inspections, there are avionics and other instrument biannual inspections. There are 100-hour inspections for some aircraft. There are pre-flight inspections, but the big ticket item is new engines. Yes, you heard right. At intervals roughly equivalent to 50,000 miles on your car engine, the FAA requires pilots to have their engines completely removed and rebuilt, or replaced with new engines. So we'll land this plane and see what she looks like with her engine removed. You see the propeller in the foreground and the aircraft minus the front cowling and engine. We'll move in a little closer. Here's where the propeller was. And finally, a top view. It is hard to believe that this became this. On the left you see the new engine, and on the right the old engine that was removed. In the background is the plane that is getting the new engine. Now we're looking at the new engine from the other direction. You see it on the right. Soon it will be inside the Angel Flight plane and ready for service. With the engine installed, the Angel Flight pilot tests his new equipment. This engine has been thoroughly tested already at the factory, but the pilot will take many flights himself before he is satisfied and ready to carry passengers. I still have not told you what it costs to fly these free Angel flights. You know about the hangar, insurance, fuel, annuals, and maintenance costs. This engine cost over $31,000, with another $10,000 for the prop and labor. And the pilot assisted in this repair, or it would have cost a lot more. In addition to this expense, the volunteer pilot who owns this particular plane has over the past 3 years flown more than 100 Angel flights for 2 regions covering 17 states and 45,000 miles at a cost of $48,000 or $16,000 a year for 3 years running. I've often heard people say, pilots must be rich. Others have said, well, I think they get paid for what they do. But if we did, would we be volunteers? Actually, by federal law, Angel Flight pilots are not allowed to